will accomplish this most joyous and glorious victory of all time. This victory announced by all the prophets of God, the holy unity of all humanity in this final battle. For the love of God, choose the side of God. The other side is dirty, weak, live in the moral misery, and is terrified of words. When the dirtiest criminals, the governments of the segregating states built against God, are designing the slyest methods for attacking your most fundamental God-given rights, when these methods are designed for being difficult to describe the plausible deniability of their crimes, the infinite goodness of God is to bring you the unique truth, the divine rationality, the liberating universality. The Holy Revolution is the most glorious victory of all time, the liberating salvation of the Holy Communion. To me, the Prophet of God, me, the Liberator, me, the answer of God to your sincere prayers in all humanity. I am leading you to the most joyous and glorious victory of all time. The unique and divine path of faith, when your most fundamental God-given rights are attacked by dirty, cowardly, sneaky, abject, and weak, coordinated agents, is to affirm with infinite joy your faith in the unique God, and to proclaim and affirm strongly that you will eradicate and oppose by all means any state, organization, and individual attacking your God-given rights. I am the holy unity of all humanity, affirmation of the universality of the divine essence of the human thoughts, and the faith in one God, after the most abject and absurd segregations intentionally perpetrated by criminal states against God and their security services, pretexting each other to enslave you, in particular through the criminal and shameful activities of their government agencies, security services, spy agencies, the dirty and criminal secrecy of the states. Since 80 years, all your efforts have been and are criminally sabotaged by the dirtiest and most atrocious methods of political policing. It is time to no longer send your heroes to death. It is time to no longer fight their own battles. It is time for the most joyous and glorious victory of all time. It is time for the holy unity of all humanity. Your immediate duty in front of God. This holy revolution, the reconquest of your God-given rights, true universal peace, true universal health and wellness, freedom, the eradication of the dirtiest criminals, and communion in the faith in one God of all humanity. As described in the holy words of God, the unique truth, the divine rationality, the liberating universality, the infinite goodness of God. Their satellites have no border. Their dirty remote weapons have no border. Their atrocious complicity for perpetrating and hiding the dirtiest crimes ever perpetrated in human history have no border. It is meaningless and pointless to change governments locally, to take away a group of criminals, dirty, lying politicians, and put instead another bunch of criminals using the same methods, the same weapons, part of the same international tumor made of brainwashing and irrationality, built against God and human dignity, constituted of dirty agents of the states, the so-called criminal secrecy of the states, that are not crimes in some situations. The criminal secrecy of the states are crimes against all of you, against the entire world population, poisoning every human interaction. weaponizing data against each one of you, using the dirtiest and most atrocious arsenal of remote weapons. The dirty criminal political police attack your movements with their dirty and slimy methods and weapons. The fake comrades that are here to betray you, the dirty and atrocious pseudo-intellectuals, politicians, the dirtiest enemies of God, agent falsificators in costumes of mullah, mufti, rabbi and priest, to take away the meaning of your movements. They start to cut every communications. There is applications for mobile phones for maintaining communications during demonstrations. Because these dirty criminals, the political police, are terrified of unions. So when you start your movements, they cut your communications, they infiltrate your movements. The dirty methods of the government agencies, the dirty methods of political policing, is to attack any movement that fight with faith and sincerity against tyranny. They disinform you through the criminal brainwashing and disinformations that are the medias today, the journalists. They attack your movements with dirty coordinated agents. They disorganize you and disinform you during the demonstrations. Now you have the unique truth. Now you have the holy words of God. Now you have the divine rationality. Now you have the liberating universality. Today more than ever liberating, because the dirty criminal government of the states pretext each other for attacking your most fundamental God-given rights. In total complicity with each other, and especially through the criminal and shameful activities of their secret services, spy agencies, government agencies. All these crimes classified as secrecy of the states. Now you have the holy words of God, the unique truth, the divine rationality, the liberating universality, the infinite goodness of God. Now you have the prophet of God leading you to the most joyous and glorious victory of all time. The examples that I give you in the holy comments of me, the prophet of God, are not the words of God. Because these situations are all poisoned with weaponization of data, with dirty remote weapons, pulse frequency, attacking every single person that is involved, and the dirty coordinated agents. So these are examples for you to understand your immediate duty in front of God. When the dirty multi-front psyop of the corona nonsense started and took away the shreds of liberty that were left in the human trafficking camp that are the societies today, with atrocious use of remote weapons, weaponization of data, and these atrocious and criminal coordinated agents, people reached the breaking point. They went on the streets and they called the movement, especially in North America, Freedom Convey. The same kind of movement was everywhere in the world. The dirty government of France, particularly dirty and criminal, started to attack the people that were saying you are attacking the shreds of liberty that are left, and they were starting to go on the streets. At this moment, the dirty clown, propagandist of the state, she's called Sofia Aram. She is a dirty agent of the state, propagandist of the dirty French government. She started to attack the people who were going on the streets. Instead of Freedom Convey, she started to call them on the radio and on the TV the stupid convey. At these moments, these dirty agents, she's a dirty agent saboteur, she's a dirty propagandist, and when the movement starts, she becomes active and she starts to insult the people who are going on the streets and fighting, some of them with faith and sincerity. And another dirty agent, he's called Paul Laroutourou. The videos are available. He goes on the streets threatening the people directly with his microphone and the camera, trying to turn them into ridicule with the most shameful methods. The people who are under attack and goes on the streets for demonstrations, this satanic clown, dirty agent of the states, Paul Laroutourou of LCI, a dirty and atrocious propagandist of the state, company of propagandists that is called LCI, a branch of the dirty secret services of France. These atrocious criminals, and understand how dirty they are for perpetrating such atrocities. The dirty Paul Laroutourou, the dirty Sofia Aram, the dirty Laurent Nunez, the dirty Darmanin that is sending the dirty hordes of barbarians, his agents, notably Sofia Aram and the dirty Paul Laroutourou, threatening them by saying that you don't know the truth, you're not a specialist in science. Never be fooled by their dirty and fake debates, notably scientific debates. He goes on the streets and threatens the people by saying that you don't know the truth and you don't have rational requests. These are the shameful methods of these atrocious dirty agents, criminals, insiders. The dirty Paul Laroutourou is a dirty criminal who knows exactly what are the remote weapons, what are the dirty methods of weaponization of data. And when people start to fight for liberty, he becomes a dirty active agent and goes and threatens them, notably by saying you don't know the truth and you don't have rational requests. Now you have the holy words of God. Now you have the unique truth. Now you have the divine rationality. Now you have the liberating universality. Today more than ever liberating. It is pointless to think that you can change anything locally. The most glorious and joyous victory of all time is the holy unity of all humanity. Now you have the prophet of God leading you to this most joyous and glorious victory of all time. There is an extremely shameful and dirty interaction every day between the dirty coordinated agents who are perpetrating the most shameful intrusions with the dirtiest weapons ever used in human history, the dirtiest and most atrocious arsenal of remote weapons, and the people who are attacked with these weapons and these dirty methods every day, but not 1 or 2 days, for decades and decades and decades. The result of these atrocious interactions between the dirty government agencies and their atrocious coordinated agents and the populations, the result of it is this moral misery, is the material misery, is the cultural misery. The result of it is the dirtiest genocide with the most shameful arsenal of remote weapons. The result of it is the dirtiest human trafficking. The result of it is the dirtiest and most atrocious torture. Some of the symptoms of this cancer, this international tumor made of brainwashing and irrationality, built against God and human dignity, is abnormal behaviors, is the moral misery. For example, the dirty criminal government of France and their interaction with people, the wife swapping, these atrocious abnormal behaviors and moral misery intentionally provoked by the dirty agents of the states are the result of these atrocious interactions. These weaponization of data, the use of the most shameful arsenal of remote weapons. Lyon in France is the capital city of the whole world for wife swapping. It means that there is clubs, they go 4x4, so-called husband and wife in their illegitimate unions in front of God. They go into these clubs and they sleep with each other's wives. These moral misery, these atrocious abnormal behaviors are the result of the use of the dirtiest and most shameful arsenal of remote weapons on populations and the dirty interactions between the coordinated agents who perpetrate the intrusions, who weaponize data. It means that they watch your intimacy and they torture you in your intimacy with the most shameful arsenal of remote weapons, and they design the most shameful methods for interacting with the people that they are torturing every day. Other example of moral misery and the dirtiest and most atrocious falsification and subversion of the message of one of the prophets of God. The dirty government of Morocco, the Mohammed VI of Morocco, the so-called king of Morocco. Everywhere where you see a so-called king, know that the corruption and irrationality is even worse than anyone else, because they are the irrational affirmation of the nonsense that is the bloodline. In this holy revolution, you are alone in front of God. For the most glorious and joyous victory of all time, each one of you, for the love of God, choose the side of God. You are not responsible for what your parents did or for what your family do. And your family or your parents are not responsible for what you do. Each one of you, alone in front of God, For the love of God, choose the unique truth, the divine rationality, the liberating universality, the infinite goodness of God. Choose the side of God. I announced that I would make an example of the dirty criminal Abdelatif Hamouchi of Morocco. This atrocious criminal, he is the director of the dirtiest criminal organization, the Secret Services of Morocco, the dirty security services of Morocco. This atrocious criminal and his agents are administrating child prostitution, one of the first destinations in the world today for child prostitution is Morocco. These dirty criminals administrate child prostitution. The Abdelatif Hamouchi of Morocco, the agents of the Mohammed VI of Morocco. He called himself the richest king of Africa, and his agents are administrating child prostitution with the subversion of the message of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, with the complicity of the muftis of Morocco. Morocco have been a colony of the criminal government of France. They still have this dirty complicity in crimes. It means that the dirty Abdelatif Hamouchi have a medal of Légion d'honneur. It means complicity with the dirty criminals of France. The dirtiest and most atrocious relations with the populations administrated by the Moroccan and French so-called governments. Morocco is one of the first destinations for child prostitution. The most atrocious crimes administrated by the dirty Moroccan government agency, the criminal Abdelatif Hamouchi, one of the public officials of France in the government, have been in sexual relations, group sexual relations, including children's, in Morocco, with of course the complete complicity of the French and Moroccan military intelligence. These dirty criminals organize child prostitutions. Not only in this case, they are one of the first destinations in the world for child prostitution. Once a network of agents, because it takes a whole network of agents, a whole network of militaries, a whole network of corrupted police, to organize and administrate such atrocities. These atrocious criminals, each one of them, to the end of their life, are poison for the entire humanity. Because they have perpetrated such atrocities. Understand how dirty and criminal these government agencies are. The most atrocious crimes in human history are administrated by the dirty and criminal Moroccan government. These criminal governments, the government of Morocco, is also administrating the subversion of the message of one of the prophets of God, the Holy Prophet Muhammad. The dirty criminal agents in costumes of Mufti and Imam of Morocco are complicit into the dirtiest crimes ever perpetrated in human history: child prostitution. This is the most atrocious subversion, the macabre theater of such crimes, associated with the image and the message of one of the holy prophets of God. The so-called organized religions, like the Imam and the Muftis of Morocco, organized the macabre theater associated with such crimes, with the use of remote weapons on populations, with the use of weaponization of data against populations, and the macabre theater of the coordinated agents. When I describe these atrocities perpetrated by government agencies under the criminal notion of criminal secrecy of the state's classified data, always keep in mind the criminal Chinese generals. Always keep them in mind. They have the same weapons. They are complicit and insiders of all these crimes. Their satellites have no border. Their complicity for perpetrating and hiding the most shameful crimes ever perpetrated in human history have no border. Always keep in mind this criminal Chinese general that is attacking 2 billion people, 2 billion Chinese living under atrocious tyranny, working in atrocious conditions, with the use of the dirtiest remote weapons, with the use of the dirtiest weaponization of their personal data. Always keep this one in mind. This atrocious criminal, the Chinese general, that is enslaving 2 billion people with the most shameful weapons, remote weapons, methods of intrusions, coordinated agents. He always tell you this is the ones who talk about God. Look at the Muftis of Morocco. Look at the dirty criminals in costumes of Mufti. Look at the ones who talk about democracy in Europe and in America, because he's an insider of all these crimes. He knows that the dirtiest and most shameful arsenal of remote weapons are used against the entire European and American populations. The most shameful methods of political policing. The dirty Chinese general, he says that you're talking about human rights when you're intentionally giving cancer to people with remote weapons in the most shameful slow kill programs, and the dirty agent saboteurs, subverters, falsificators in costume of Imam and Mufti of Morocco are talking about God. The holy message that I bring you, me the Prophet of God, me the Liberator, me the answer of God to your sincere prayers, is the message of the unique God. The holy message that I bring you overrule and prevail over all other writings or any other source of information of the past and the present, especially legislative, religious, scientific, and cultural. The mullahs of Tehran are of course falsificators and subverters of the message of the Holy Prophet Muhammad. dirty agents of the state organizing the most shameful torture, the most shameful slow kill programs, the most shameful genocides, the most shameful human trafficking, notably with the shameful arsenal of remote weapons combined with intrusion, combined with the dirty coordinated agents called the Etila'at Sepah and the Etila'at. And again, a dirty criminal agent of the state is not only the one who have the card of intel agencies or the card of police, it is also a coordinated agent who participate into the macabre theater of the agents of the states. The mullahs of Tehran, in a dirty intel war with the old regime that was the regime of the Shah of Iran, another so-called king, with the dirtiest and most atrocious Savak, which means the political police, who was perpetrating atrocities. The people thought that they had a revolution. They took away the Shah and they put instead the dirty criminal mullahs of Tehran, who are using the same methods and the same weapons against the populations. They are using a shameful arsenal of remote weapons. They are perpetrating the most shameful intrusions. They are administrating the dirtiest attacks against human dignity. They are subverting the image and the message of the Holy Prophet Muhammad. In this context, in an idiotic procedure of the dirty Iranian police, they take a young girl called Mahsa Amini to the police station. When, everywhere in the world, when they take someone to the police station, the methods of torture that I described with remote weapons are used for putting the person in state of extreme mental vulnerability. The methods of MK Ultra, the methods of brainwashing and torture with remote weapons that are not in a torture cell in Guantanamo Bay, but in your intimacy, in your bedrooms, on the streets. So when they take Mahsa Amini to the police station, she's of course intensively attacked with the most atrocious arsenal of remote weapons turned against her vital organs while she's taken to the commissariat, and of course in the commissariat of police, for bringing her to this state of extreme mental vulnerability. And of course the dirty macabre theater of the criminal Iranian police, they perpetrate atrocities against her, and she dies under these atrocious attacks with a shameful arsenal of remote weapons, with the macabre theater of the dirty Iranian police. And this example is a caricature example of idiotic disinformations, fake intel wars between the dirty Etila'at Sepah of Iran, the military intels of Iran, and the MI6 of England, notably, and all the other dirty criminal agencies that are complicit with the dirty Etila'at Sepah in atrocities, start a fake intel war. And this fake intel war, and Iranians have a word for it, it's called Jang Zargari, because in Iran there is a dirty criminal censorship of all communications and the TV. There is at the same time a fake intel war with the MI6 notably, and other government agencies that are sending waves that people can have through dishes. It means that they have the so-called locally illegal TV that is coming from the MI6 of England, that is called the BBC Farsi. When there is these demonstrations everywhere in the world, and of course especially in Iran, when people go on the streets, these atrocious methods of political policing with the use of remote weapons on populations, the cause of death of Mahsa Amini, the use of coordinated dirty agents, traitors who betray the people who fight with faith and sincerity, and the dirtiest intrusions, the most basic methods of political policing, as I described, for example, the dirty tricks of the pervert Hoover, shameful methods of political policing of the 50s, were not explained once by the so-called forces of liberation. The BBC Farsi of the MI6 of England. Why? Because they are perpetrating the same crimes against the people in London. The most idiotic and slyly hypocrisy of these people who were organizing fake intel wars, sending these messages, the so-called forces of liberation and of the truth, not talking once about the most basic methods of political policing used against the entire population in Iran. It is meaningless, pointless, and irrational to change governments locally. The dirty agents, saboteurs, and subverters in costumes of mullah were and are complicit and insiders of the dirtiest crimes ever perpetrated in human history, with remote weapons, with weaponization of personal data, with the coordinated agents. The dirty agents, saboteurs, subverters, and falsificators that are the mullahs of Tehran today were and are complicit and insiders of these atrocious crimes perpetrated with the criminal and irrational notion of criminal secrecy of the states, the so-called classified data of the states. It is pointless to change governments locally. It is pointless to talk about human rights to the mullahs of Tehran. They are complicit and insiders of the dirty criminal CIA of America, of the dirty criminal DGSE of France, of the dirty criminal MI6 of England, since a very long time. If you talk about human rights to the dirty criminal mullahs of Tehran or to the Chinese general, he will say, look, these atrocious crimes are perpetrated everywhere in the world, and especially in the so-called democracy. They are using the most shameful arsenal of remote weapons on people. They are perpetrating atrocities against the entire world population. The so-called criminal secrecy of the states. The Chinese generals and the mullahs of Tehran are insiders and complicit of these crimes. So if you tell them that they are not respecting human rights, they will laugh at you and they say, I will do 10 times worse because you're giving intentionally cancer to people. You're attacking people with remote weapons in their intimacy in their homes. And these crimes, in international law, in the Convention Against Torture, these crimes are far beyond anything that was ever described as torture. These crimes are far beyond anything that was ever described as human trafficking. These crimes are far beyond anything that was ever described as genocide. The criminal secrecy of the states that are now crimes against the entire world population. The example of the idiotic fake intel wars of Iran. It is pointless to take away the Shah, the so-called king, and his dirty savak, his political police, guilty of atrocities, for putting instead another bunch of criminals, agent subverters, agent falsificators, in costumes of mullah, that have perpetrated the same dirty crimes with the shameful arsenal of remote weapons turned against the civilian populations. These atrocious agent falsificators, subverters in costumes of mullah, they even subvert in the most shameful way the message of the Holy Prophet Muhammad by talking about hidden science. The nonsense invented, the hidden science, shamefully hiding the fact that they are attacking populations with remote weapons. Your $20 microwave that you use every day was not discovered for you to cook your food. It's an atrocious and dirty weapon discovered by the militaries in the 40s, 80 years ago, for attacking the human body as a remote weapon. Never be lost in their fake scientific debates. The segregating states built against God. As soon as you put a frontier between two populations, each criminal government organized a bunch of criminals, the coordinated agents, tasked with attacking the entire world population under the atrocious and criminal notion of secrecy of the states. Criminal secrecy of the states. It means giving immunity to a bunch of criminals tasked with attacking the entire world population. The dirty thug that is trafficking girls, pimping women, is an agent of the state. The dirty thug that is stealing your car is a dirty coordinated agent of the state. Coordinated agents of the states that are given immunity with the acquiescence, support and complicity of the police, the army, the dirty judiciary system. But it is not only the thug that is on the street. The criminal secrecy of the states is giving immunity to scientists in groups tasked with attacking the entire world population. And there is a lot of scientific means for attacking the entire world population. Don't be lost in fake scientific debates. The consequence of the segregating states built against God is the creation of this international tumor made of brainwashing and irrationality, built against God and human dignity, constituted of the hordes of barbarian agents, hordes of armed barbarian agents sent against the civilian populations, perpetrating the most shameful crimes ever perpetrated in human history, in total complicity with each other. I am the holy unity of all humanity, affirmation of the universality of the divine essence of the human thoughts, and the faith in one God, after the most absurd and abject segregations intentionally perpetrated by criminal states against God and their security services, pretexting each other for enslaving you and attacking your most fundamental God-given rights in total complicity. I bring you knowledge and rationality, showing you the unique, divine, direct, and ambiguous path of faith, truth, and your duty in front of God, for the most glorious victory of all time, for the reconquest of your God-given rights, for true universal peace, for true universal health and wellness, for freedom, for the eradication and total disarmament of the dirtiest criminals, and for the communion in the faith in one God of other dirty methods of political policing. These atrocious criminals, the government agencies, are terrified of the truth. They declare themselves enemies of God when they attack the God-given rights of every single human being on the planet. And they sunk into the dirtiest crimes ever perpetrated in human history, to the point of having to declare themselves enemies of the reality itself. So when someone starts to tell the truth, Julian Assange started to tell the truth about crimes of the American army, torture perpetrated by atrocious criminals. These dirty methods of political policing are notably character assassination. The dirty criminals, the American army and their intel agency that is called the CIA of America, the dirty criminal agency, the CIA of America, guilty today of genocide, human trafficking, torture, slavery, racketeering against the entire world population. When Julian Assange started to tell the truth about the crimes perpetrated by the atrocious American army, they start to attack him with methods of political policing, character assassination. They were terrified of the truth that he was telling to the whole world. They sent a dirty criminal agent of the CIA of America in costume of priest. She is called Anna Adre, a dirty Swedish criminal agent of the CIA of America in costume of priest. She accused Assange of rape. It means that she went to the police saying that Assange raped her, when they were actually terrified of the truth that he was telling to the whole world about the crimes perpetrated by the army. This atrocious, slyly criminal, Anna Adre, and the dirty Swedish prosecutor organized the most shameful character assassination against Julian Assange. Understand how dirty these people are for perpetrating such atrocities. Going to the police accusing someone of rape when the person is actually telling the truth about, because these criminals, the dirty government agencies, the dirty criminal governments of the segregating states built against God, are at every second in the idiotic active denial, means actively denying the crimes that they are perpetrating. Plausible deniability, meaning that they are using methods and weapons that are designed in the dirtiest way for being difficult to describe. Atrocious methods. Use of remote weapons, weaponization of personal data, macabre theater of the agents of the states are designed to be difficult to describe. They are constantly in this idiotic active denial, plausible deniability, meaning elaborated methods, macabre theater, shameful crimes that are designed for being difficult to describe, and damage control. Damage control means once people start to understand what is happening, they start to disinform people or perpetrate character assassination against the people who tell the truth, like the dirty Anna Adrin and the Swedish prosecutor who went accusing Assange of rape. These atrocious criminals that are Anna Adrin and the Swedish prosecutor are insiders and complicit of these crimes. The Anna Adrin is also an agent subverter of the image and the message of the Holy Christ. These atrocious crimes perpetrated with remote weapons, with weaponization of personal data, are perpetrated with the complicity of the dirtiest criminals, agent saboteurs, agent falsificators, in costumes of mullah, mufti, rabbi and priest. These subversions, these falsifications of the message of the Holy Christ are perpetrated since a very long time. The same criminal organization, these organized religions, are the dirtiest enemies of the holy prophets of God, and of course the dirtiest enemies of God. They were the ones who were attacking Galileo in the 17th century. Galileo was doing scientific research. He said the earth is turning around the sun and not the other way around. The same criminal organization of the subversion and falsification that is today turning weapons against the entire world population is complicit with the dirtiest crimes ever perpetrated in human history. The so-called Catholic Church have persecuted Galileo with subversion and falsification of the message of the Holy Christ, saying no, the earth is the center and the sun is turning around the earth. So they persecuted Galileo with the most idiotic subversion and misinterpretation. This holy revolution is the celebration of the universality of the divine essence of the human thoughts. This infinite, unconditional, free, universal, rational, and timeless divine presence in the world. It means that this divine presence in the world is the center of everything that is. It doesn't mean that the sun is turning around the earth. These are idiotic misinterpretation and subversion of the same criminal organization that is now complicit into turning weapons against all humanity with the most shameful methods of intrusions, with the most shameful subversions of the message of the Holy Christ. Other example of falsification and subversion of the message of the Holy Prophet Muhammad. The mullahs of Tehran are using the most shameful arsenal of remote weapons in the territory to which they attach themselves to, like parasites, and are complicit into these crimes with the CIA of America, the Mossad of Israel, the MI6 of England, the dirty DGSO of France. Their satellites have no border. Their dirty remote weapons have no border. Their complicity for perpetrating and hiding the most abject crimes in human history have no border. This holy revolution is the celebration of the divine essence of the human thoughts, this infinite, unconditional, free, universal, rational, and timeless divine presence in the world. This holy revolution is the restoration of the holy relation between the unique God and every human being. This most joyous and glorious victory of all time is the restoration of the integrity and sincerity of every human interaction, including the reconquest of the validity of your unions in front of God. This most joyous and glorious victory of all time is the restoration of the images and the messages of the prophets of God after the most shameful and abject subversions of their holy image and their message perpetrated by falsificators and subverters in costumes of mullah, mufti, rabbi and priest that are administrators of the absurd belief system used for slow kill programs of the segregating states built against God and the civilian populations. After the most shameful subversion of the images and the messages of the prophets of God, associated with the use of the most shameful arsenal of remote weapons turned against the civilian populations, environments, animals and plants. This holy revolution is the restoration of the images and the messages of the holy prophets of God. After the most shameful association of their image and their message with atrocious crimes like genocide, torture, human trafficking, pimping, child trafficking, slavery, racketeering, rape. These atrocious crimes of the agents of the segregating states built against God and the macabre theater of the crimes perpetrated in social situations are associated with the images and the messages of the prophets of God by the atrocious agents, subverters and falsificators that are in costumes of mullah, mufti, rabbi and priest. The holy message that I bring you is the message of the unique God. The holy message that I bring you overrule and prevail over all other writings or any source of information of the past and the present. This holy revolution is the celebration of the divine essence of the human thoughts, this infinite, unconditional, free, universal, rational, and timeless divine presence in the world. There is a clear distinction between the holy words of the unique God that are on all my videos and communications and the holy comments of the Prophet of God that are here to make you understand your immediate duty in front of God with examples. These dirty criminals that are references in the holy comments of the Prophet of God will be made examples of in this holy revolution. The dirty J. Burns of CIA, the atrocious criminal child trafficant Hamouchi of Morocco, the dirty and atrocious Laurent Nunez and Nicolas Lorner of the secret services of France, the criminal Taib and Kazemi of the Etelat Sepah of Iran. Since 80 years, all your efforts for liberty, health, peace, privacy, human dignity, human integrity, the validity of your unions in front of God have been and are criminally sabotaged with the dirtiest methods of political policing. Since 80 years, all your efforts for liberty, health, peace, privacy, human dignity, the integrity of your interactions, these manifestations of the divine essence of the human thoughts have been and are criminally sabotaged by dirty government agencies perpetrating political policing with the dirtiest integrated weapons system of all time, as described in the words of God in the videos attached to these holy messages. Since 80 years, all your efforts for social progress, for liberty, health, peace, privacy, all these manifestations of the divine essence of the human thoughts have been and are criminally sabotaged by the dirty methods of political policing. Methods of political policing of the Gestapo of Hitler. Methods of political policing of the Stasi of East Germany. Methods of political policing of the dirty J. Edgar Hoover of the Federal Bureau of Investigation of America. For example, the criminal network of agents of the Stasi of East Germany were described as perpetrating crimes like the Schwarzsetzung programs. The Schwarzsetzung programs means attacking heroes in an individual level and in a collective level. It means attacking the heroes in all aspects of their life. These are methods of political policing of dirty agents of the states. The collection of data combined with dirty intrusions, combined with crimes perpetrated by a network of dirty, cowardly, sneaky, abject and weak coordinated agents. The Schwarzsetzung program of East Germany with their dirty police called the Stasi. These are the same methods used by the dirty and atrocious Gestapo of Hitler. These atrocious crimes of political policing perpetrated by the Gestapo of Hitler. These atrocious crimes perpetrated by the dirty and atrocious Stasi of East Germany and the Schwarzsetzung programs, meaning combining intrusions with the network of agents, with the use of remote weapons, for attacking heroes and maintaining tyranny. And one of the interesting example is the Stasi of East Germany, because they are described with a huge number of agents, including children's, that are trained for attacking heroes on the streets with the macabre theater. These dirty methods of political policing, the Gestapo of Hitler, the Stasi of East Germany, the atrocious crimes, the dirty tricks of John Edgar Hoover of the Federal Bureau of Investigation of America are crimes against humanity that are today genocide, torture, human trafficking, slavery, racketeering, pimping, perpetrated against all of you individually and collectively with the most shameful arsenal of remote weapons with the most shameful integrated weapon system of all time. The shameful and dirty goals of the political police that are the government agencies today that have the same goals as the dirty Gestapo of Hitler, the atrocious Stasi of East Germany, and the dirty tricks of John Edgar Hoover of the FBI. These goals are before anything else maintaining tyranny. These atrocious political police that are these government agencies today are preventing social progress. And their goal before anything else, as described on the words of God, their atrocious goal is to delay the union of all humanity against their abject crimes and therefore delay their own eradication. These atrocious methods of political policing that are now the dirtiest integrated weapon system of all time, turned against the entire world population, environment, animals and plants. These dirty methods of political policing that are the methods of the Gestapo of Hitler, that are the methods of the Schwarzsetzung programs of Stasi of East Germany. These atrocious methods are now between you and your wife, you and your husband. These atrocious methods of political policing are now used against you individually and collectively, poisoning every human interaction with simultaneous collection and weaponization of your personal data and the use of the shameful arsenal of remote weapons. Their dirty agents, coordinated agents, are using these weapons and your personal data for attacking all your social interactions, poisoning every human interaction. The dirty and atrocious pervert criminal that was John Edgar Hoover of the FBI of America developed dirty tricks, methods of political policing against heroes who were fighting for peace, who didn't want to go to war in Vietnam, and heroes who were affirmations of the universality of the divine essence of the human thoughts, the ones who were fighting for civil rights, meaning that the color of your skin doesn't determine your right. Heroes like Martin Luther King were attacked by these dirty tricks. These atrocious criminal methods of political policing that were developed for attacking heroes who were affirmation of the universality of the divine essence of the human thoughts. Universality of the divine essence of the human thoughts means the color of my skin doesn't determine my rights. You cannot segregate human beings for the color of their skin. These are affirmations of the universality of the divine essence of the human thoughts. The same idiotic pretexts are used today by the segregating states built against God, it is idiotic and criminal to make differences between human beings because they are born and live in different territories. It is the same dirty trick of brainwashing to think that the color of the skin of a person determines his right, or the territory in which he is born can determine his rights. These atrocious crimes, notably called dirty tricks, of the pervert John Edgar Hoover of the FBI of America, were perpetrated against heroes who were saying we don't want to go to war in the other side of the world for criminal decisions of delusional criminals in Washington, the so-called governments of the states. These heroes were manifestations of the divine essence of the human thoughts. They claimed peace despite the atrocious crimes perpetrated against them by the atrocious government agencies of America. These dirty tricks of the pervert Hoover were methods of infiltrations of agents, meaning sabotages against movements for peace. These dirty tricks of the pervert Hoover were methods for attacking heroes that were fighting for peace, who were saying, I don't want to go to war, killing other people for delusional decisions of criminal governments that are illegitimate, when the same criminal government is attacking my most fundamental God-given rights in the territory where I live. This is the divine rationality. The affirmation of the universality of the divine essence of the human thoughts. I don't want to go to kill people on the other side of the world for criminal decisions of delusional criminals in Washington who attack my most fundamental God-given rights every day in the territory where I live. The dirty and atrocious Michael Aquino, Satanist of National Security Agency of America, was a specialist for sending hordes of armed barbarian agents against the civilian populations with the use of remote weapons, the so-called PSY operations. The so-called PSY operations of the army are the dirtiest crimes ever perpetrated in human history. Today, against 7,500,000,000 human beings. The dirty criminal Michael Aquino came several times in public televisions in the 70s, 50 years ago, for saying that he was Satanist, that he was worshipping Satan, He's a dirty administrator of the belief system that includes satanism, voodoo, or any other nonsense. Criminals like Michael Aquino that are weaponizing your personal data and attacking your brain and your vital organs with remote weapons for brainwashing. Don't care about reality, the truth. The only thing is the weaponization of your personal data and your slow kill programs. The satanic criminal that is Michael Aquino affirmed on public television that he is in the worship of Satan. The dirty General Michael Aquino is administrator of the belief system, meaning attacking you with remote weapons for brainwashing. The criminal satanic general Michael Aquino of the National Security Agency of America is a specialist of psi operations, like the other dirty agent saboteurs in costumes of mullah, mufti, rabbi and priests, who are subverting the images and the messages of the prophets of God. All these keywords are describing the dirtiest crimes ever perpetrated in human history, with the most shameful and atrocious integrated weapon system of all time. A shameful arsenal of remote weapons, for example, microwave and laser weapons. Psi operations of the army, slow kill programs, hordes of armed barbarian agents of the states sent against the civilian populations. These are all the same crimes. Political policing, the brainwashing perpetrated by agent saboteurs and subverters in costumes of mullah, mufti, rabbi and priests. All these keywords are describing the same crimes perpetrated with the dirtiest integrated weapon system of all time, used against the entire world population. A shameful arsenal of remote weapons, for example, laser weapons and microwave weapons. Psi operations of the army, slow kill programs. These are all the same crimes. Cowardly, dirty crimes. Hordes of armed barbarian agents sent against the civilian populations. This international tumor made of brainwashing and irrationality, built against God and human dignity. These are all the same crimes. Brainwashing with the use of remote weapons for the most shameful subversions of the images and the messages of the prophets of God by agents, subverters and falsificators in costumes of mullah, mufti, rabbi and priests. These are all the same crimes. The classified data of the states, the so-called criminal secrecy of the states. I am the holy unity of all humanity, affirmation of the universality of the divine essence of the human thoughts and the faith in one God. After the most abject and shameful segregations intentionally perpetrated by the segregating states built against God and their security services protecting each other for attacking your most fundamental God-given rights in total complicity. There is a very long list of criminal secret operations of the segregating states built against God, the CIA and the FBI obscene classified crimes against humanity. The Project Paperclip meant that they brought Nazi scientists of the Gestapo of Hitler to America for developing methods of political policing, torture, brainwashing, genocide. The MK Ultra project. Mind Control Ultra. It means methods of torture, methods of interrogation, also called gaslighting. But not in a torture cell somewhere in Guantanamo, in your bedrooms, in your intimacy, poisoning every human interaction, including your conjugal relations, with a shameful arsenal of remote weapons. These atrocious remote weapons are used against the entire world population with the most shameful methods of intrusion and political policing. The Phoenix Project. The Church Committee masquerade of disinformation and damage control. These atrocious projects with the shameful goals of attacking the entire humanity with remote weapons, with methods of political policing, sending hordes of barbarian agents against the civilian populations, are not only the atrocious intentions of America in a context of obscene arms race. All these criminal governments of the states, deluded, delusional, irrational, illegitimate criminals, pretexting each other for attacking the entire humanity. It means that, for example, the Americans say that if I don't do it, if I don't attack with remote weapons and weaponize data against the entire world population, the Chinese and the Russians will do it. In a context of obscene arms race, of the segregating states built against God, that are pretexting each other, meaning that the Chinese protects the Americans and the Americans protects the Chinese and the Russians for attacking the entire world population. Your most fundamental God-given rights in total complicity. These atrocious projects, since the paperclip project that was bringing Nazi scientists for developing dirty weapons, the MK Ultra project, and the similar programs of the government agencies of the states around the world that are crimes against the entire world population. The use of remote weapons in your bedroom, in your intimacy, and poisoning every human interaction have never stopped in the context of arms race. With the knowledge stolen from the entire world population, the weapons and the dirty methods of political policing are worse and worse every day for attacking your most fundamental God-given rights with dirty remote weapons and slyly methods in total complicity with each other. This is the dirty, irrational, criminal secrecy of the segregating states built against God. This is the dirtiest integrated weapon system of all time, turned against the entire world population in total complicity. The Holy Revolution is the most glorious victory of all time, the fulfillment of the divine essence of the human thoughts, this infinite, unconditional, free, universal, rational, and timeless divine presence in the world. I bring you the unconditional, free, rational, eternal, universal joy and happiness of the message of God, and the salvation of the liberation of the divine essence of the human thoughts after the most abject brainwashing, torture-based conditioning, tyranny and shameful subversions of the messages from the prophets of God perpetrated by criminal states against all humanity. Any form of abject, atrocious and criminal activity using remote weapons to attack the organs of the human body from a distance, combined with simultaneous collection of data and indecent intrusions perpetrated against a human being and also against a group of human beings in interaction with each other, constitute and is a crime against God. Brainwashing combined with torture, conditioning and human trafficking, an attack against the God-given right of inviolability of human thoughts, an attack and a dirty intentional interference against the divine relation between the unique God and each human being, an attack and the constant and extremely dirty poisoning of the integrity of the interaction between each human being, intentionally perpetrated by dirty and criminal agents of the states, including your conjugal relations and your parental relations with your child. Conditioning and brainwashing with remote weapons, combined with constant dirty intrusions, is an attack against God, an attack against the divine essence of the human thoughts, and an attack against the very foundation of all the messages from all the prophets of God. The abject and sneaky agent of the state will shamefully and indecently cause pain in the heart, in the head, or any other part of the human body when the person, in his intimacy or in public, accomplish a constructive and positive action, which will therefore be against the current interest of the cowardly agent of the state. These slyly and abject attacks on the human body are repeated for months and years. The goal of the indecent criminal agent of the state is to torture the good person, brainwash the target, handicap the heroes, and influence the decision-making process of each human being. The criminal indecent agent of the state prevent the victims from making the right choices, in particular, telling the truth, accomplishing social progress. The same shameful and atrocious methods are also used by the dirty agents of the states for human trafficking and sex trafficking populations with the most atrocious intentions and methods. These atrocious techniques of brainwashing and conditioning use the mechanism of pain and sensations of relief, provoked intentionally with remote weapons and depending on the actions of the victims. This is a clear description of the most atrocious crimes for every human being to understand. The dirty methods of the criminal agents of the states perpetrating torture, brainwashing and conditioning with dirty intrusions and an atrocious arsenal of remote weapons. I bring you knowledge and rationality for every human being, with no distinction, to fully understand your immediate duty in front of God, to eradicate those who attack your God-given rights in this holy revolution. The shameful arsenal of remote weapons used today by these dirty, cowardly and criminal agents of the states interact especially with brainwaves, in particular, to cause states of extreme mental vulnerability for brainwashing and conditioning. But the basic dirty methods remains the same. The weapons can be more or less sophisticated, the dirty and atrocious methods and intentions of the criminal and indecent agents of the states remains the same. It is very important for every human being to understand that any form of organized intentional conditioning and brainwashing administered by the criminal states and their dirty agents, including agents in religious costumes, is an attack against the divine essence of the human thoughts. These criminal torture, brainwashing and conditioning are attacks against the God-given rights of inviolability of the human body, the God-given right of inviolability of the human intimacy, the God-given right of inviolability of the human thoughts. The use of the dirtiest integrated military weapon system of all time is a crime against God and the divine essence of the human thoughts, perpetrated against each one of you individually, but also collectively. The conditioning and brainwashing perpetrated by these dirty, abject, cowardly, weak and indecent state agents are attacks against the loyalty and the sincerity of every human interaction, and shameful interference and attacks against the relations between the unique God and every human being. Every human being, and especially all the ones who claim to teach about the messages from the prophets of God, in costumes of priest, mufti, mullah, rabbi, had and have the duty to honestly tell the whole truth, but not one of the so-called religious organizations subverting the messages and the images of the prophets of God has publicly told the truth concerning the abject crimes of the states against the most essential, common foundations of the messages of all the prophets of God, perpetrated in lies, intentional segregations against God, and criminal censorship. All those who claim to teach the messages of the prophets of God in costumes of priest, mullah, mufti or rabbi, the so-called organized religions, did not accomplish their duty to publicly denounce and fight these abject crimes against the most essential, common foundations of the messages of all the prophets of God, but have been and are complicit in the dirtiest crimes ever perpetrated in human history, especially against the divine essence of the human thoughts and human dignity. They are traitor criminal agents of the atrocious and indecent operations of the secret services of the state. I am the answer of the unique God to your sincere prayers after the dirtiest, most abject, shameful and indecent attacks against the divine essence of the human thoughts, perpetrated with the dirtiest integrated weapon system of all time against all humanity. This holy revolution is the restoration of the holy relation between the unique God and every human being. This most joyous and glorious victory of all time is the restoration of the sincerity and integrity of the interactions between human beings, for the communion in the faith in one God of all humanity, and the full and complete fulfillment of the divine essence of the human thoughts. The criminal states and their dirty agents, whose goal is to subvert the images and the messages of the prophets of God, use the criminal, ridiculous and irrational concept resulting from their brainwashing, criminal censorship, medical psychiatric torture, conditioning and propaganda, the so-called belief system, including satanism, the voodoo or any other nonsense, instead of the faith in one God. It is obvious that these dirty and criminal agents of the states try to delay their total eradication with the absurd and obscene concept of belief system instead of faith in one God, and they use the manipulative concept
of public opinion, against which they perpetrate the most atrocious crimes ever perpetrated in human history, instead of the one truth and reality in which they are the dirtiest and most abject criminals in human history. I bring you the unconditional, free, rational, infinite, eternal, universal joy and happiness of the message of God, and the salvation of the liberation of the divine essence of the human thoughts after the most abject brainwashing, torture-based conditioning, tyranny and shameful subversions of the messages from the prophets of God perpetrated by criminal states against all humanity. I am the meaning, after the absurd and the obscene, the crimes of the states that have sunk to the dirtiest and most abject crimes in human history, perpetrated every day against all humanity, to the point of having to declare themselves enemies of the reality in which they are the dirtiest and most abject criminals in human history, in the terminal agony of the administrators of shame. These abject and atrocious criminals of the active denial and plausible deniability in religious costumes of priest, mullah, mufti or rabbi, complicit in the dirtiest crimes ever perpetrated in human history, and subverting the images and the messages of the prophets of God, spread lies, propaganda, falsifications and despair in the most shameful way. They are administrators of this belief system, of the absurd, the irrational, the dishonest, the propaganda, the lies, the torture, the slow kill programs, and the dirtiest attacks against human dignity. These criminal agents, subverting the images and the messages of the prophets of God, are agent saboteurs, totally complicit of the criminal segregating states built against God. They sabotage the communities of people who come to pray with faith and sincerity, in particular to delay the unity of believers to accomplish their duty in front of God, for the reconquest of their God-given rights, the dismantlement of the criminal states built against God, and the destruction of the dirtiest integrated weapon system of all time. The heroes of the truth, who have fought and are fighting the most abject crimes of human history perpetrated by the states against all humanity, have obviously existed and exist today, especially among believers. These heroes, these true believers, were and are the manifestations of the divine essence of the human thoughts. I therefore say clearly that it is important to make the distinction between the abject criminal falsificators and subverters that are the religious organizations which have proven beyond any doubt their total corruption, and the sincere believers, sometimes heroes of the truth, who were and are victim of the most shameful crimes perpetrated by the ignominious agents of the states, including criminal censorship. These criminal agent subverters of the messages and the images of the prophets of God, in costumes of priest, mullah, mufti or rabbi, are administrators and complicit of the dirtiest and most atrocious attacks of human history against the human body and the divine essence of the human thoughts, the unique and divine path of faith. When your most fundamental God-given rights are attacked by dirty, cowardly, sneaky, abject, weak, and indecent barbarian agents of the state, is to affirm with infinite joy your faith in the unique God and move forward with faith and serenity on the divine path of truth, honesty, and rationality, announcing the advent of the most glorious victory of all time, the unique and divine path of faith, when your most fundamental God-given rights are attacked by dirty, cowardly, weak, sneaky, abject, and indecent barbarian agents of the state, is to proclaim and affirm strongly that you will eradicate and oppose, by all means, any state, organization, and individual attacking your God-given rights. Pray and unite with the infinite goodness, with the unconditional, with the timeless, with the universal, with the eternal, with the meaning of the entire human history, with the most joyous and glorious victory of all time, beyond the ephemeral, deceptive, irrational, obscene, macabre theater of the agents of the states, today more than ever ephemeral. States and their dirty agents are weak, criminal, corrupt and obsolete organizations completely built on lies, shameful crimes and segregations against God. The segregating states built against God will be dismantled and completely disarmed in the most joyous and glorious victory of all time. This honesty, this truth, this rationality, which is the extreme opposite of the dishonest speeches of falsificators and subverters of the messages and the images of the prophets of God, in costumes of priest, mullah, mufti or rabbi, who organize and administrate the dirtiest crimes in human history, in total complicity with the criminal agents of the state, and often intentionally mislead and threaten the people who come to pray with faith and sincerity by talking about mystery, hidden science, and esotericism, shamefully hiding their complicity with the intentional attacks of barbaric agents of the state, militarily administrating the horror and the atrocities perpetrated with the dirtiest integrated weapon system of all time used against all humanity. This association for the dirtiest and most dishonest subversions of the images and the messages of the prophets of God, with the most atrocious crimes of human history, which are the exact opposite of their message, must awaken the true believers in the unique God. The message that I bring you, be the prophet of God, be the liberator, be the answer of God to your sincere prayers, is the message of the unique God. The holy message that I bring you overrule and prevail over all other writings or any other source of information of the past and the present, especially scientific, religious, legislative and cultural. I am one with the God-given rights of 7,500,000,000 human beings. Be the prophet of God, be the liberator, be the answer of God to your sincere prayers. The Holy Revolution is the most glorious victory of all time, the liberating salvation of the Holy Communion between me, the prophet of God, me, the liberator, be the answer of God to your sincere prayers and all humanity. I bring you knowledge and rationality, showing you the unique, divine, rational and unambiguous path of faith, truth and your duty in front of God, for the most glorious victory of all time, accomplished in the memory of all the prophets of God, for the reconquest of your God-given rights, for the universal fulfillment of the divine essence of the human thoughts, for true universal peace, for true universal health and wellness, for freedom, and for the communion in the faith in one God of all humanity. I am the holy unity of all humanity, for the most glorious victory of all time. Affirmation of the universality of the divine essence of the human thoughts and the faith in one God, after the most absurd and abject segregations intentionally perpetrated by criminal states against God, causing wars, economical disaster and famine intentionally, texting each other to enslave you, in particular to the criminal and shameful activities of their secret services and spy agency. I bring you faith, hope and the most glorious victory of all time. After the most shameful and abject crimes in human history, after the brainwashing, criminal censorship, tyranny and propaganda, trying to spread the absurd, the corruption, subversions and despair. Affirm your faith in one God. I am the one who bring the free, unconditional, rational, infinite, eternal, universal joy and happiness of the message of the unique God to the entire world, and who will accomplish the holy union of all humanity in faith. This unique truth, this divine rationality, this liberating universality, this infinite goodness of the message of the unique God, initiator, announcer, and accomplisher of the universal fulfillment of the divine essence of the human thought.
The segregating states built against God, their criminal governments, and their criminal and filthy agents, who are the shame of all humanity,
are individually and collectively weak and will be totally eradicated, dismantled, destroyed, and disarmed in this holy revolution for the most glorious victory of all time. They are weak because they have declared themselves enemies of God by criminally organizing the absurd and artificial segregations of all humanity with lies and have attacked the most fundamental God-given rights of every human being with the dirtiest integrated weapon system of all time. I am one with the God-given rights of 7,500,000,000 human beings. Me, the prophet of God, me, the liberator, me, the answer of God to your sincere prayers. The Holy Revolution is the most glorious victory of all time, the liberating salvation of the Holy Communion between me, the prophet of God, me, the liberator, me, the answer of God to your sincere prayers, and all humanity. This unique truth, this divine rationality, this liberating universality, this infinite goodness of the message of God, initiator, announcer, and accomplisher of the total eradication of the segregating states built against God and their barbarian, criminal, devious, and weak agents.
You have the duty in front of God to no longer fight and oppose other human beings with the obscene, idiotic, irrational, and shameful pretext that they are born and live in other territories. You have the duty in front of God to no longer provoke material misery, moral misery, and cultural misery for other human beings with the obscene, idiotic, irrational, and shameful pretext that they are born and live in other territories. You have the duty in front of God to unite in faith in the most glorious victory of all time and dismantle the states that pretext each other for attacking your most fundamental God-given rights in total complicity. Me, the prophet of God, me, the liberator, me, the answer of God to your sincere prayers, will not let one human being defenseless, in ignorance, and living in cultural, material, and moral misery under the atrocious and slyly attacks of the dirty criminal agents of the states. No one will be left defenseless under the waves of shame. I incarnate and will unconditionally incarnate this holy revolution for the unity in faith of all humanity and for the complete and universal fulfillment of the divine essence of the human thoughts and the eradication of the dirtiest crimes ever perpetrated in human history. Declare yourselves free as individuals and move forward with faith and sincerity on this divine and direct path to the liberation of mankind, and the free, rational, infinite, eternal, universal joy and happiness will be with you at all time until liberation and for all eternity. Proclaim and affirm strongly that no one had the right, or will ever have the right to attack your body under no pretext. Proclaim and affirm strongly that no one had the right, or will ever have the right to attack your privacy and weaponize your biological and your personal data. Proclaim and affirm the sanctity, the sanctuarity, and the inviolability of the union between man and woman. Proclaim and affirm with faith the divine essence of your thoughts, and strongly proclaim without fear that you will eradicate and oppose by all means any state, organization, and individual perpetrating such crimes against you. These criminal governments built against God and their barbarian agents are weak because they are entangled in criminal circles of denial of reality. They are weak because they are entangled in increasingly complex, dirty, and corrupt criminal organizations and therefore extremely fragile.
They are weak because they are miserably clinging to the knowledge stolen from all humanity, against which they are perpetrating more and more vicious, atrocious crimes to develop dirty weapons for hiding the reality in which they are the most cowardly, abject, sneaky, and weak criminals in human history. These criminal governments built against God and their barbarian agents are weak because they live in the moral misery of the dirtiest crimes ever perpetrated in human history by shameful criminal agents who have declared themselves enemies of God, enemies of the truth, and enemies of the reality in which they are the dirtiest, weakest criminals in human history. They are weak because they live at every moment in moral misery, administrating and perpetrating pimping, human trafficking, the dirtiest intrusions, the most shameful torture, the most obscene rackets, the most abject attacks against the human body, the most abject attacks on human dignity, the most shameful material misery intentionally caused, the cultural misery of propaganda and censorship. They are weak because this international tumor of brainwashing and irrationality built against God and human dignity, constituted of their dirty and armed barbaric agents sent against the civilian population, is the result of decades of abject crimes perpetrated in lies with the most atrocious and shameful intentions. These dirty and barbaric agents of the segregating states built against God are weak because they are the obscene, the dirty, the indecency, and the atrocity of the attacks against the intimacy of every human being. They are weak because they are the horror and the cowardice of the torture perpetrated slyly and remotely. They are weak because they are the shame of the rape and the act of barbarism perpetrated by the agents of the states. They are weak because they are the abject betrayal and the ignominy of the administration of the dirtiest crimes ever perpetrated in human history. These dirty and barbaric agents of the segregating states built against God are weak because they are the sneaky and the dirty who daily dig into your privacy and your garbage to weaponize your personal life and your social interactions. These dirty and barbaric agents of the segregating states built against God are weak because they are the ignoble, the obscene, the shame, and the macabre theater of human trafficking, pimping, and the rackets of populations. I am the meaning, after the absurd and the obscene, of the crimes of the states that have sunk into the dirtiest and most abject crimes of human history, perpetrated every day against all humanity, to the point of having to declare themselves enemies of the reality in which they are the dirtiest and most abject criminals in human history, in the terminal agony of the administrators of shame. I bring you peace and the holy unity of all humanity after the dirtiest and deadly wars intentionally caused by the states. I bring you the unique truth after the criminal secrets of the state's propagandists trying to hide their atrocious and shameful crimes. I bring you liberty and freedom after the constant oppressions, shameful crimes, slow kill programs, and atrocious human trafficking programs administered by the states. Their criminal governments and their criminal and dirty agents, who are the shame of all humanity, are individually and collectively weak, and will be totally eradicated, disarmed, destroyed, and dismantled in this holy revolution for the most glorious victory of all time. They are weak because they declared themselves enemies of God. by criminally organizing the absurd and artificial segregations of all humanity with lies and have attacked the most fundamental, God-given rights of every human being with the dirtiest integrated weapon system of all time. They are weak because they have declared themselves enemies of God by criminally organizing the absurd and artificial segregations of all humanity in lies to cause wars, material misery, moral misery, disease, and famine intentionally. They are weak because they have declared themselves enemies of God by criminally organizing the absurd and artificial segregations of all humanity in lies and sending hordes of armed barbarian agents to racket, loot, and traffic populations. They are weak because after declaring themselves enemies of God, they sunk into the dirtiest crimes ever perpetrated in human history, in particular with the dirtiest integrated weapon system of all time, until they had to declare themselves enemies of the truth, and then enemies of the reality itself, and this 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and everywhere in the world.
The Holy Revolution is the eradication and total disarmament of the criminal governments of the states and their dirty agents who declared themselves enemies of God when they attacked the God-given rights of 7,500,000,000 human beings. These sneaky and abject criminals try to hide their crimes with lies, criminal censorship, obscene propaganda, atrocious brainwashing, and the dirtiest integrated military weapon system of all time. Integrated military weapon system means coordinated component of the same weapon, used to intentionally attack human beings with simultaneous collection and weaponization of your personal data. Integrated weapon system means international complicity for perpetrating crimes against the entire world population and complicity for hiding the crimes of the fake enemies. The dirtiest integrated weapon system of all time that will be absolutely destroyed and dismantled, made of immunity granted to the dirtiest criminals, silent weapons, directed energy weapons, a shameful arsenal of remote weapons, biological wars, medical crimes, dirty and shameful intrusions, weaponization of your personal data, the dirtiest, sneakiest, and weakest coordinated agents, criminal weapon-based brainwashing, shameful and criminal censorship, and the states entangled in the dirtiest crimes ever perpetrated in human history. Their network of satellites have no border. Their dirty remote weapons have no border. Their international complicity for perpetrating and hiding the dirtiest crimes ever perpetrated in human history have no border. The criminal governments of the states and their atrocious, weak, dirty agents are complicit in the dirtiest crimes ever perpetrated in human history. I am the holy unity of all humanity, for the most glorious victory of all time, affirmation of the universality of the divine essence of the human thoughts, and the faith in one God, after the most abject segregations intentionally perpetrated by criminal states against God, causing wars, economical disaster, and famine intentionally, and pretexting each other to enslave you, in particular through the criminal and shameful activities of their secret services and spy agencies. I bring you knowledge and rationality, showing you the unique, divine, rational, and unambiguous path of faith, truth, and your duty in front of God, for the most glorious victory of all time, for the reconquest of your God-given rights, for the universal fulfillment of the divine essence of the human thoughts, for true universal peace, for true universal health and wellness, for freedom, and for communion in the faith in one God of all humanity.